The American aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, which just arrived in the region as part of President Trump's military buildup, was today approached about 500 miles from the Iranian coast by an Iranian drone, flying aggressively and with unclear intent, according to U.S. Central Command.
The U.S. Navy fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln.
The United States Central Command has confirmed that a U.S. F-35C stealth fighter jet engaged and shot down an Iranian drone. This happened approximately 500 miles off the southern coast of Iran. We are now in a phase where weapons are being fired and aircraft are being destroyed. The stakes here are incredibly high because this happened right as diplomats are preparing for critical talks. So, here are the timeline and the details of this engagement. On Tuesday, the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the most powerful assets in the United States Navy, was transiting through the Arabian Sea. The carrier was operating in international waters. It was roughly 500 miles away from the Iranian coast. This is a standard operating area for American forces in the region. However, the situation changed rapidly when radar systems picked up an inbound aerial contact. The contact was identified as an Iranian Shahed-139 drone, a large unmanned aerial vehicle. It is a medium-altitude, long-endurance aircraft which looks very similar to the American MQ-1 Predator. It has a long wingspan and a pusher propeller on the back, capable of carrying surveillance equipment and even weapons. Experts say this drone can carry up to 4 precision-guided missiles. According to Captain Tim Hawkins, a spokesman for the command, the Iranian drone began to maneuver aggressively toward the aircraft carrier. The intent of the drone was unclear to the American sailors watching on their screens. The drone was not just passing by, it was closing the distance. American forces attempted to de-escalate the situation. They followed standard procedures to warn the aircraft away. The Iranian drone ignored these warnings. It continued to fly toward the ship and its crew. The decision was made to engage the threat. An F-35C Lightning II fighter jet launched from the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln. This jet belongs to the Marine Fighter Attack Squadron, VMFA 314. The F-35C is the carrier-based version of the most advanced stealth fighter in the world. The pilot moved into position to intercept the Iranian drone. The engagement was short. The F-35C fired on the Iranian drone. The specific weapon used has not been officially confirmed by the Pentagon. The F-35C can carry air-to-air missiles like the AIM-9X Sidewinder or the AIM-120. It also has a 25mm internal cannon. Regardless of the specific munition, the result was definitive. The Iranian drone was destroyed. It fell into the sea. Captain Hawkins confirmed that no American personnel were hurt during this incident. No American equipment was damaged. The carrier and its air wing remain fully operational. But the military statement was very clear about why this happened. They stated that the Iranian drone was conducting an unsafe and unprofessional maneuver. They viewed this as a probe of American defenses. This was not the only incident that happened on Tuesday. While the carrier group was dealing with the drone in the Arabian Sea, another dangerous situation unfolded in the Strait of Hormuz. This is the narrow choke point where a huge amount of the world's oil passes every day. Hours after the shootdown, Iranian forces targeted a merchant vessel. The ship is the MV Stena Imperative. It is a US-flagged ship. It has a US crew. It was transiting legally through the international waters of the strait. Suddenly, it was approached by Iranian military assets. 2 fast attack boats from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, sped toward the merchant ship. At the same time, an Iranian Mahajer drone flew overhead. This was a coordinated multi-domain harassment operation. The Iranian forces threatened to board the ship. They threatened to seize the vessel. This is a nightmare scenario for civilian mariners. The United States Navy responded immediately. The guided missile destroyer USS McFall was operating nearby. The destroyer rushed to the scene. The presence of a US warship forced the Iranian boats to back off. The situation was de-escalated. The merchant vessel was able to continue its transit safely. Captain Hawkins stated that the Iranian actions were an attempt to test American response times. We have to look at the political context here. These 2 attacks happened at a very specific moment. The United States has been flooding the region with military hardware. President Trump ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln to move from the South China Sea to the Middle East. This was a major redeployment. The carrier arrived just days ago. The region is packed with American firepower. In addition to the carrier, there are destroyers like the USS McFall, the USS Delbert D. Black, and the USS Mitchell. There are squadrons of Super Hornets, Growlers, and F-35 seconds. The White House is watching this closely. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed the shootdown. She stated that the drone was acting aggressively. She emphasized that the president is committed to diplomacy first. However, she noted that diplomacy requires both sides to participate. She used the phrase that it takes two to tango. This brings us to the Iranian narrative. The official Iranian news outlet Tasnim reported on the incident. They admitted the drone was a Shahed-139, but their version of events contains a critical detail that changes how we must view this. Tasnim claimed the drone was on a legal mission. They said it was filming and monitoring in international waters. Here is the part that you need to pay attention to. The Iranian report claims that the drone successfully transmitted its images and data back to base before it was destroyed. They claim the connection was lost only after the data was sent. This implies that Iran may have gathered the intelligence it wanted. They may have sacrificed the drone to get a look at the carrier's defensive posture. This all happened just days before scheduled diplomatic meetings. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is set to meet with Iranian officials in Istanbul this Friday. These talks are supposed to prevent a war. The foreign ministers from countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Egypt are also expected to be involved. The timing of these attacks suggests a deliberate strategy. Iran is creating pressure right before sitting down at the negotiating table. The Pentagon is taking this very seriously. Central Command stated that continued harassment will not be tolerated. They cited the uncertainty of the drone's intent as the reason for firing. They could not take the risk that the drone was carrying weapons. As we noted, the Shahed-129 can carry missiles. Allowing an armed drone to get close to a carrier deck full of aircraft and sailors is not an option for any commander. We also know that US forces have been dealing with drone threats in the Red Sea. The Houthi militants in Yemen have used Iranian-made drones to attack shipping for years. American pilots have experience shooting these down, but a direct engagement with an Iranian military drone near a carrier is a different level of tension. Intelligence sources suggest that Iran is testing the rules of engagement. They want to know how close they can get before the Americans shoot. They want to know which radar frequencies light up. They want to see how fast the fighters launch. By sacrificing a drone, they gain valuable data on how the carrier strike group protects itself. The region is on edge. China has privately warned Iran that attacking a carrier group would be a disaster. It could trigger a massive response. Israel is watching and preparing its own plans. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are worried that this data gathering is a prelude to a larger attack. They fear a swarm attack that could overwhelm defenses. We are in a window of extreme danger. The military assets are in place, the weapons are loaded, the political leaders are trading threats, and now the first shots have been fired. An Iranian drone is at the bottom of the sea. A US destroyer had to rush to save a merchant ship. The question now is whether the diplomats in Istanbul can stop this train before it goes off the tracks. We need to stop and analyze why this specific event matters so much. First, look at the technology involved. The Shahed-129 is a serious piece of hardware. It is not a cheap quadcopter you buy at a hobby store. It is the backbone of Iran's surveillance and strike fleet. By sending this specific drone toward the carrier, Iran was making a statement. They were using a high-value asset to challenge the US Navy. This was a calculated risk. They knew there was a high probability it would be shot down. This tells us that the value of the probe was worth the cost of the airframe. This brings us to the concept of the suicide scout. In military strategy, information is often worth more than a single vehicle. If the Iranian claim is true that the drone transmitted data before it was destroyed, then Iran has won a tactical victory. They now have recordings of how the USS Abraham Lincoln reacts. They know the timeline from detection to interception. They know the electronic signatures of the F-35C radar. This is data they can feed into their missile guidance systems. It is data they can use to plan a saturation attack. This is why the Pentagon is so concerned. It is not about the loss of one drone, it is about the intelligence gain for the enemy. We also need to look at the platform that took the shot. The F-35C is the newest fighter in the US Navy's inventory. Seeing it used in a real-world engagement like this sends a message to the entire world. It proves the aircraft is operational and ready to fight. It also shows that the US is willing to use its most advanced technology to protect its ships. This is a show of force. It tells Tehran that the stealth fighters are not just for show. They are on the deck, and they are armed. The timing is the second critical factor. This happened right before diplomatic talks. In history, we often see violence spike just before negotiations. It is a tactic known as escalate to de-escalate. Iran is trying to show that it is not afraid. They want to sit down at the table in Istanbul with leverage. They want to say, "We can threaten your carriers, we can seize your merchant ships, so you better give us a good deal." It is a dangerous game of chicken. If they push too hard, the talks collapse and the bombs start falling. Compare this to the tanker war of the 1980s. During that conflict, the US and Iran exchanged fire in these same waters. It led to sinking ships and tragic mistakes. We are seeing echoes of that era now. The harassment of the MV Stena imperative is a direct callback to those days. It is a reminder that Iran can threaten the global oil supply at any moment. The Strait of Hormuz is a choke point. If Iran decides to close it or make it unsafe, the global economy suffers. They are reminding the world of their power over the energy market. There is also a psychological component. A carrier strike group is a symbol of American invincibility. It is a floating city of steel and fire. By flying a drone right at it, Iran is trying to puncture that image. They are trying to show their own people and their proxies in the region that they are not intimidated by the Great Satan. It is a propaganda move. Even though the drone was destroyed, they can spin it as a brave act of defiance. They can claim they gathered secret data. In the information war, perception is reality. Finally, we have to look at the institutional reaction. The US Central Command did not hesitate. The rules of engagement were robust. There was no long debate. The drone crossed a line, and it was destroyed. This indicates that the commanders on the ground have the authority to protect their forces. In previous years, there might have been more hesitation. There might have been a fear of starting a war. Now the posture is aggressive defense. This change in posture increases safety for the sailors, but it also decreases the time available for diplomacy to work during a crisis. The trigger is sensitive. So where does this go from here? We can lay out the consequences based on what we know about military logic and the current political climate. In the short term, the immediate consequence is a heightened state of alert. Every sailor and pilot in the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group is now on a war footing. The combat air patrols will be stepped up. You will see 24-hour coverage around the fleet. The radius of the keep-out zone around the carrier will expand. Any aircraft or boat that gets too close will be warned sooner and engaged faster. For the upcoming talks in Istanbul, the atmosphere will be icy. The American diplomats will walk into the room with proof of Iranian aggression. They will use this incident to demand stricter terms. The Iranian diplomats will likely use the incident to claim they are the ones under siege by a foreign military buildup. It makes a breakthrough much harder to achieve. The trust level, which was already low, is now non-existent. Long-term, the consequences are more worrying. If Iran truly gathered data on the F-35C and the carrier's defensive networks, they will share that information. It will go to their missile engineers. It might go to Russia or China. This degrades the technological advantage of the US forces over time. It means the US Navy might have to change its frequencies or tactics to stay ahead. There is also the risk of the boy who cried wolf scenario, but in reverse. Iran might send wave after wave of cheap drones to exhaust the carrier's missile supply. An F-35 missile costs millions of dollars. A Shahed drone costs a fraction of that. If Iran forces the US to shoot down cheap drones with expensive missiles every day, it becomes a logistical nightmare. It is an asymmetric strategy designed to bleed the US Navy's readiness. So what do you think? We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our new analyses and global breaking points. Thank you for choosing us.